This week we're going to be learning the Sicha of Shabbos Parshat Vayetze, Tes Kislev Tovshin and Beis. The Sicha can be found in Sefer Sichas Tovshin and Beis, page 134. That's Chelek Aleph, Tovshin and Beis. So, of course, Tes Kislev we know is both the Yom Hiledis and the Yom Hilula of the Mittel Rebbe, and Yud Kislev is of course the Geula of the Mittel Rebbe, and this is what the Rebbe starts off with. Then in regards to the Mittel Rebbe, the Baal Yom Hiledis and Baal Yom Hilula of this day, Tes Kislev, we find a Chiddush, that his Yom Hiledis and Yom Hilula are both on the same day as Tes Kislev, and a greater Chiddush that immediately the following day, the day after his Yom Hiledis and Yom Hilula, is on Yud Kislev, we have his Chag HaGeula, in which he was released from jail. Now, based on what it's known, that the Yom Tovim of the year have a special connection to the Parshas of the Torah in which they fall, it's understood that the Parsha of this week, which is Parshas Vayetze, as well as Parshas Vayishlach, which we're immediately going to start reading in Mincha, and that the Chag HaGeula is falling out on the Sunday of Parshas Vayishlach. So obviously there's connections and lessons with the Baal Yom Hiledis and Yom Hilula and the Baal HaGeula, including, and most importantly, to take out from this a lesson and regarding the Indian that Shazman Groma B'Dereinu Zeh in our generation, in our time, the Gula Mitzvah Shlema De Mashiach Tzidkeinu, as we discussed many times recently, that now we've finished already all the Inyanim, and all we need to do is to be Makabel Pnei Mashiach Tzidkeinu B'Poel Mamish. So the Chiddush in this, that the Yom Hiledis and the Yom Hilula of Tzaddik fall out on the same day, is brought in Chazal, on the words of Moshe Rabbeinu when he said, Ben Me'av Esim Shana Anoichi Hayom, that I'm 120 years old today. The Gemara says, why does it say Hayom? Hayom Molu Yamo Yishnoise. It's to teach you that the Eibishter is sitting and fulfilling the years of the Tzaddikim from day to day, from month to month. In other words, that they have complete years. As the Pasuk says, it's Mispar Yomecha Amale, I'm going to fill the days of your life. So simply what this means is that by the Tzaddik there's a certain shleimus, a certain perfection, that the Eibishter fills the days of his life, as Mispar Yomecha Amale, that there should be a complete round number of years from the day of his birth to the day of his istalkus, all the way down to the last day. However, we need to understand what's actually the special significance about this. We understand that the shleimus of the avodah of a tzaddik is understandably a shleimus more of a spiritual nature, beruchnius, seemingly has nothing to do with physical days. And as it's known that the life of a tzaddik is not about his physical life, rather it's a spiritual life of emunah, of yira, of ava, and therefore it's understood that a tzaddik seemingly could have the shleimus, the perfection of his avodah and ruchnius, even if his physical years are not filled from day to day. And as we in fact find by most tzaddikim, that their istalkos weren't actually on their birthday. So the Rebbe goes on and explains in Seif Gimel that we could explain it in the following way. The shleimus of the avodah of a tzaddik is when this shleimus, or this perfection of ruchnius, reflects itself also in a physical perfection, meaning also in the time of his avodah, in years and in his physical days. And to use the expression of Chazal, Yedei Hashem Yimei Smimim, the Eibishter knows the days of Temimim means those that are complete, and Chazal explained, just like they are complete, so too their years are complete. And the reason for this is that because since the whole purpose of avodah and the proper way of avodah of Torah and mitzvahs of a yid, and that's the avodah of a tzaddik, obviously he's doing the avodah most perfect way. So since the avodah of a yid is expressed when he refines and elevates also his physical body, to the extent that there is no separation between his physical and his spiritual, so there's no parts of his avodah, there's no parts in his avodah Hashem that are separated between his neshama and his guf, between his ruchnis and his gashmis. Rather, every detail in his life is completely permeated with the neshama, with the ruchnis, to the extent that his gashmis becomes completely secondary, completely bottled to his neshama and his ruchnis. To use the expression of the Alter Rebbe, oisim nafsham ikar, where the soul is the main thing and the body is secondary, in such a way that all of his gashmis is a keli and a garment, and like a merkava, like a vehicle, only expressing his avodah ruchnis. In other words, even though it's true that the life of a tzaddik is not a physical life, but rather a spiritual life, nevertheless, the shleimus of his avodah is when that spiritual life is also, it shines into and penetrates even to his physical life, so that his physical life is like a keli. And even furthermore, it's literally just an extension of his spiritual life, in this way that they're becoming completely one and united, both his spiritual life along with his physical thing. So he's one person, one tzaddik, that his ruchnis, the geshleimus in his spiritual life, is expressed and reflected completely in his physical life, in such a way that in his physical life as well, there's absolutely nothing extra, nothing missing, no more, no less, compared to the ruchnis, the life. So all of his physical life, including actually his physical days and years, are one continuation, one reflection of his spiritual life. And Adarabah, specifically through the shleimus also in Gashmias, that ends up affecting and bringing a shleimus even into the ruchnias as it would be on its own, as will be explained later in the Sicha. And therefore Hashem makes sure that the years and life of the tzaddik is complete from day to day, because the shleimus of the avoid of the tzaddik completely permeates and is reflected also in the shleimus of the Gashmias, the life, in accordance to the shleimus of the ruchnias. Because what's the world all about? The gather of the world, the definition of the world is usually about time and space. And therefore that's usually divided into days, the days of the year. And as Chazal tell us, once the Eibishter creates a world, chooses the world, so he sets up Rosh Chodashim, times for the heads of the months, the years. And once the Eibishter chooses Yaakov Abanav, that the Eibishter makes a Rosh Chodesh of Geula. In other words, that the whole idea of years being set is very much to do with the nature of the world, of the Gashmis of the world itself, as opposed to the idea of Rosh Chodesh Shel Geula, which that's already more specifically to do with the Ruchni, is the Kavoida of Yaakov and his children. We also know that Shana, the word year, is also from the word Shinui, which means change. Mishnah also means that it keeps on repeating itself. And therefore it surrounds and encompasses all of the differences within time, and that's why the shleimus of the avodah ruchnis of a tzaddik, Hashem Shahem Tamimim, is specifically reflected when also his years are also complete, as it says, Kach Shnoisim Tamimim, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu make sure to fill their years and their life from day to day, and every single day is utilized completely by elevating, by refining the levush, the garment that's connected to that specific day, as it's known that mitzvahs are called levushim, and if you're missing one mitzvah, one levush, and one day, then you're missing the levush for that day. Every day has its own garment, and the days of the person are specifically designated and decided in according to the amount of those levushim, those garments that he needs to complete, so that the shleimus and the tamimus, that completion of the tzaddik beruchnius and his gashmius, that's his physical life and years, are equal. That represents that he has this completion in both areas as one continuation from the other, and that's why it says Kashem Shahem Tamimim Kach Shnoisam Tamimim. The Rebbe adds that we could say that since the expression of the Gemara is HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yoishev U'Mamalish Neseim Shel Tzadikim Yoyim L'Yoyim, and it doesn't mention any sort of conditions or limitations regarding tzaddikim, so we have to say that really the shleimus exists on some level, on a spiritual level. It actually happens by every single tzaddik, even by a tzaddik that passes away on a different day than his birth. So there's still some sort of shleimus like that on some level, but it's understood based on what we said before, that this shleimus, when it's expressed also in Gashmias, there's something more special and more shleimus, more complete about that. And Adarabah, the shleimus in a revealed way, specifically when it expresses itself also in the Gashmias of the years and the days, and this is by those tzaddikim that their histalkus is on the very same day that they were born. This sort of shleimus we saw clearly by the avos, because they're, according to the opinion that they were born in Nisan, they also passed away in Nisan, and so too regarding the other opinions, but it's always the same time that they were born, they passed away. And we find this by Moshe Rabbeinu, who's the one that said, Hayoim Malu Yom Yishna. He said that he was born on the 7th of Adar, and he passes away on the 7th of Adar. In addition to the fact that he also had the completion of 120 years. Because since they were the first Roye Yisrael, the shepherds of Am Yisrael, especially Moshe Rabbeinu, who is called the Raya Mehemna, so by them this shleimus of the avodah of a tzaddik expressed itself in a complete way, in a visible way, of Molu Yom Yeshnoise, having these complete days and years. And in a similar way, this expressed itself also by the Mittel Rebbe, the Moshe Rabbeinu of his generation, as we will soon see. In order to explain this, the Rebbe says, in Seif Daled, we're first going to have a look at some of the things connected to the Parashiyos of the week, Vayetze, and so to Vayishlav, that we're going to be starting at Mincha, in which we find something very, very surprising. The main story in the Torah regarding the avodah of Yaakov Avinu is actually not in Parshas Toldos. in which it speaks about how Yaakov was in his father's house in Eretz Yisrael in Beersheba, but rather in Parshas Vayetze, where we're speaking about Vayetze Yaakov in Beersheba, Vayelech Haran. In other words, Yaakov going out from Beersheba to a place called Haran, which Chazal explained to us is Charoin Afshal Makam Boilam, the Eibishter's anger in the world. And where is he going? He's going to love on Ha'arami with all of the negative things that come along with that, a tremendous, tremendous descent. And that's why Yaakov was in fact afraid, and he needed a special guarantee from the Eibishter, a special promise, Ushmarticha, I'm going to guard you wherever you go. Furthermore, it's specifically in Haran where Yaakov gets married. He establishes his family, his house, and most of the Shvatim are born there. This is the foundation of all of Am Yisrael. Even once Yaakov completes his avodah by Lavan in Haran, and he's planning to go back to his father's house, as he says, V'shafti b'shalom el beis avi, and he's also commanded by the Eibishter to go back to your land and to your father's land. Nevertheless, instead of Yaakov immediately going back to Eretz Yisrael, now starts another whole story of Yaakov along with Esav. Vayishlach Yaakov malachim lefanov el Esav. Yaakov sends messengers to his brother Esav to the land of Seir, Sdei Edom, with all of the details of Parshas Vayishlach. And only after Parshas Vayishlach, the Torah comes back to discuss how Yaakov goes and lives, Vayeshev Yaakov, in the land of his father. So the question is, seemingly, the main story of Yaakov Avinu as one of the Avos who are the Eibishter's chariot, and actually even called the Bechir Bachar Sheba Avos, the chosen of the Avos, you would assume would have been about his Avodah, his holy Avodah in Eretz Yisrael, and very briefly, if at all, mention all of his other occupations and businesses and dealings with Lavan Ha'arami and Esav HaRasha. As we find this regarding Avram and Yitzchak, that the main story about them in Torah is also while they're in Eretz Yisrael. So it seems very surprising that we're making such a big arichus and discussing at such great length and elaborately about Yaakov in the places of Lavan and Esav. So the Rebbe explains this in Seif Hey. And the Rebbe says, based on that which is known as Maisa Avi Simul Labanim, we understand that when the Torah tells us the story of Yaakov Avinu with Lavan and with Esav and Parshas Vayetze and Vayishlach, so obviously this is some sort of sign and a hira for the avodah of the Yidden. When the Torah tells us the story with Yaakov Avinu, Vayetze Yaakov, Vayishlach Yaakov, in fact, this is the first time the Torah is telling us with a great arichos about the avodah of the Avos dealing with the world. And the Torah, obviously, a Torah Melashon Ha'ira, is coming to teach us a lesson for all generations, that the tachlis of the avodah of a Yid is to have an impact on the world, to affect the world. And the Torah is also going ahead and telling us exactly, in detail, how we're supposed to go about this. So the Torah starts telling us, Vayetze Yaakov mi Beersheva vayelech Haran. This is generally symbolizing the neshama coming down into the guf. The neshama of every single yid, as we say, neshama shenosata b'tahiri. It's coming from such a pure place. It's coming from such a holy place. It's coming from Beersheva. Beersheva representing the sphere of Bina. Why is Bina called Beersheva? Because it's the source. It's like the Be'er, the well for the seven midos of Atzilus, the source for the 7 midos. And then the neshama needs to go down into Malchus, into the level of Charon. And furthermore, going down even into a greater descent into the worlds of Bria, Yetzira, and Asiyah, as we say, Ata Varasa, Ata Yetzarta, Ata Nefachta, all the way into this physical and materialistic world, which is a place of Charoin Afshal Mokim, a place of the anger of the Eibishter, a place filled with Klippa and Sitra Achra, which are blocking and concealing over godliness, over the Kedusha, over the Ruchnius of the Neshama. And furthermore, they can even harm Chas v'Shalom the Yid, as Yaakov Avinu was actually afraid. However, we understand that the whole purpose of this tremendous Yerida is that, on the contrary, that the Yid, the Yaakov, should overcome all of these concealments that come from the materialistic, physical aspects of the world, the Charon, and Adarab, Dafka, through there to be able to establish Beis Yisrael in a way that Dafka, regarding Yaakov, we say, Mitase Shleima, that all of his children are tzaddikim. And this is what happens when a neshama coming into the guf reveals through the fulfillment of Torah and mitzvahs the light of his neshama, and through that he actually transforms the chumris, the lowest materialistic aspects, into gashmis, which is physicality of slightly higher nature, and then it causes that the gashmis should actually become a keli, become secondary and a vessel, a vehicle for all ruchnis, the kenyana for his neshama, all the way that his physical body actually unites with his neshama. And this is also hinted immediately when Yaakov goes out, Vayetze Yaakov Beersheva Vayelech Haran. So what do we see over here? That specifically as a result of going to Haran, which again represents the neshama coming down into the guf. But through that he becomes Vayelech Haran. Vayelech also has the meaning that he becomes on the level of a mahalich, as it says, this is the special advantage that a neshama has over a malach, that he doesn't stand in one place. Rather, he's going, he's moving. And furthermore, it says Vayelech Harana. It doesn't say Licharan, but Harana, meaning to say that since his avodah is being involved with Haran, he's actually affecting this concept of the halicha, of this movement, of this going, even in the Haran itself, in the place of Haran Afshal Mokoim, and therefore it doesn't say Vayelech Licharan. That would have just meant that Yaakov Avinu went to Haran, but him and Haran sort of remain two separate things. The halicha, the going, and Haran remain two separate things. However, when it says Vayelech Haran, is coming to symbolize and to hint that this concept of spiritual halicha, the spiritual journey, is also coming down and affecting even the level of Haran itself. The Rebbe says we could add that this idea is also hinted in that extra hay at Haran instead of Licharan. And we know this from the Chazal tell us that this world was created with a hay. In other words, by the neshama coming down from Beersheva into Haran. So now is being revealed in Haran that hay of Hashem's name through which the world is created. In other words, the koyach, the godly chayis that's giving life to the creation, or to use the famous expression, the koyach hapoyel, the koyach of Hashem that's doing it in that which was made. In other words, that we could recognize within the creation itself, within the Gashmias, the power of Hashem, the Chayus Eliki, the godly energy that's inside of it, so that the creation itself is only an expression of Hashem's koyach, which is being expressed and shining into this particular thing. The pasuk goes further, the Rebbe says in Seivov, Vayivga b'mokoim vayolen sham kivo hashemesh. So he encounters this place, he sleeps over there because the sun set. Vayikach me'avnei hamokoim, and he takes from the stones of the place, puts it around his head, and he lies down in that place. What does this represent? When the neshama of a yid is coming down into this world, to come down into a physical body in this physical world. Oilam, of course, Meloshen Helam, it's a concealment. So immediately, Kiva Hashemesh, there's the concept that the sun sets. Kishemesh umogen Havaya Elikim, the name Havaya we know the sun is a mashal for Hashem shining, and right now there's the sun setting, meaning there's a tremendous concealment on godliness. And as a result of that, what happens? Yaakov lies down by Yishkav b'mokoim mahu. What does lying down represent? It's when the person's head, which usually shows on his greatest qualities, is suddenly lying on equal level together with his regel, together with his feet. In other words, the lowest part, as we'll discuss this particular aspect a little bit later in more detail. So in other words, as a result of the concealment going on in this Gashmi, the materialistic world, the lowest world possible in regards to the concealment of Hashem's light, and especially in the darkness of Golus, where we don't even see all the signs and miracles as we used to, specifically in Ikvus of the Mashiach, the very last time before Mashiach comes, when we're in a situation of sleep and lying down, when our revealed and higher koichas seem to be more concealed, and therefore the roish and the regel, the head and the feet, seem to be on equal level. Furthermore, this lowly world, which is a world filled with klipos and sitra achra, which are literally neged Hashem, against Hashem, they are rebelling, and therefore, what does the pasuk say? Suddenly there's fear, there's a certain concern. Vayikach me'avnei hamokim, he needs to take from the stones of the place because he's afraid of the wild beasts. But the truth of the matter is that specifically as a result of the Yerida, as a result of this descent, that's actually what gets the Ruchni is going even stronger, that the Neshama should be able to affect in the Gashmis of the Gulf, that even in such a lowly place, where Vayolin Sham Kivo Hashemesh, and then we say Vayishkav, that he lied down, that it's all equal. But the truth of the matter is that when the head is equal with the Gulf, he's actually, there's another way of understanding this, that right now he brings the Kedusha of the Neshama into the Guf. And furthermore, Vayishkav, in a positive way, that the physical body is now becoming united with the Neshama, and in that way actually adding certain greatness to the Neshama. And that's what it represents, that in an equal way, in other words, starting off equally, that the Neshama impacting the Guf, but ultimately the Neshama even benefiting, as we'll explain later. Says the Rebbe in Siv Zayin, we're going to understand this by first explaining the following issue, which the Meforshim asked on the pasuk Vayivga b'mokim, etc. Vayishkav b'mokim ahu. The question is, b'mokim ahu we know is the place of the Mikdash. Dafka over here, Yaakov is suddenly going to sleep. Now, even though it's true the sun suddenly set, not in its right time, in order that he should end up lying down over there, but Chazal tell us on these very words, Vayishkav b'mokim ahu, that he lied over there. Here he was lying down. But the 14 years that he was in the yeshiva of Aver, he didn't lie down. He was involved in Torah. Chazal tell us here he lied down, but the 20 years he was in the house of Lavan, he didn't lie down. Then Davka over here, when he comes to the place of the Mikdash, suddenly he's lying down to sleep. From this itself we understand that the lying down has to also have some sort of positive meaning. And on the contrary, it must mean the highest and greatest idea, and which is Davka revealed in the place of the Mikdash. So the way that Rebbe explains it is as follows. The difference begashmi is between a person when he is standing, sitting, lying down, is that when a person is standing or even sitting, so you can clearly see the difference between the higher part of his body, the upper part, the head, and the middle of the body, to the lower part, the legs, the feet of the body. And you can clearly see because the Eliyah, the upper part, that's what leads the lower part of the body. But what happens when a person is lying down, a person is sleeping, then the upper part and the lower part are lying there equally. What does this represent, Beruchnius? The upper part of the person represents his Ruchniistic essence. The lower part of the person represents his Gashmiistic aspects. So it's understood that even though simply in a revealed way, lying down, which would mean that the Ruchnius, the higher parts of the person, are suddenly on equal level with the lower parts, the Gashmiistic part of the person. So it would seem like that's a tremendous Yerida, a tremendous descent on the level which we would call Giluyim, in other words, in a revealed way. However, if you want to go deeper, down to the root of things, there's actually a much greater advantage, which is that Dafka in this situation, the highest levels of the person and the lowest level of the person are equal, and this is coming as a result of the Gilui of the very essence of Hashem, which, since he is higher than all of the various different Gedorim and definitions and limitations, they're both exactly equal compared to him, based on something similar which is known, or similar to that which is known, that the Pshit is that simplicity of a simple Yid, of a Pashat Yid, which seemingly by him the Seichel, his intellect is not shining, the Seichel of the head, and yet that Dafka is connected with the Pshitus, with that purity of Atzmus, of the Eibishter himself. And this later also impacts when the person gets up from his state of sleep, from lying down, that even once you start feeling already the difference between the higher part and the lower part of the body, that this is considered a Maila and this is considered Mata, this is the higher, this is the lower, and yet you still feel inside of that revelation of Atzmos. And then the differences between the higher and lower part are more only as far as what we call the tzir, in other words, the external look and specific character that they play, but in their very essence, they're all part of the one thing, a revelation of the Eibishter himself. In other words, then the avoid of the Yid, when he goes out from Be'er Shava, going to Choron, there's two aspects. Number one, in addition to the fact that the Ruchnius needs to overpower the Gashmias in a sense, that the Gashmias shouldn't conceal and hide, rather be a Keli to Ruchnias, which then the Gashmias still remains what it is, which is, despite everything else, a certain concealment, ungodliness. Yet, and then there's something much, much higher than that, and that is where the Gashmias and the Ruchnias become one, even within the way they are, by the Gili of Atzmos that's higher than both of them together. Says the Rebbe in Siv Ches, now we can understand what Yaakov Avinu does when Vayishka b'mokem ahu, when he's lying down at that place. The Davke in the Mokim HaMikdash, Davke in this holiest place, where eventually there's going to be the greatest Gili of the Kus, the Gili of Atzmos, in the Beis HaMikdash, and the way it was in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the place where the Oren was, which doesn't take up any space. And yet that Dafka brought him to Vayishka, he shall lie down there, but in a positive way, in other words, in a way where it's being expressed that the lowest and the highest are all becoming equal because of the Gilui of Atzmos. And this is what the Pasuk goes on and says, Vayachaloim, he has a dream, with the ladder standing on the ground, with the head reaching the heavens. And the Malachim of Hashem are going up and down, Hashem Nitzav Alav, and Hashem is standing right over him, etc. In other words, what do we see over here in this letter? The chibur, that connection between earth and heaven. Arzu Hashemayma, through the fact that Hashem is there, the atzmusei v'husei, the very essence of Hashem, and automatically you have all the malachim there and so on. Says the Rebbe, with this we could also explain Pnimi Sonyanim, that when Vayikatz Yaakov Mishnosi, when Yaakov wakes up from his sleep, he says, Ochen yesh havaya b'mokim hazeh, v'anoichi lo yadati, simply means Hashem is here and I didn't know. But the Rebbe explains that the Gilui of Shem Havaya is in a way of higher than understanding, higher than knowledge, higher than the idea of Yediyah. Because Yediyah is, in a certain sense, like a certain milo, a certain advantage, a certain great quality. It's connected to the intellect, which, as we said before, that would be more noticeable when a person is standing or a person is sitting. You see the quality of his seichel. However, when there is the gili of atzmus, or everything is exactly equal, so that's a pshat on noichi lo yadati. In other words, it's higher than the level of yediyah. And continuation to that, the pasuk says that Yaakov Vayira, he's afraid, and he says, "Man noira hamokim hazeh." How awesome is this place? Ein zeki and Beis Elokim. Again, literally, it means this is a house of Hashem. In other words, that this place becomes a house, a dwelling place for Hashem himself, and a dwelling place where the very essence of Hashem is able to be revealed. All of this brings that after setting up the monument, which we'll discuss later as well, Yaakov makes his promise. And he says, all the way at the end, Kol asher titli, everything you're going to, from everything you're going to give me, Aser and Allah, I'm going to take off Meiser. In other words, that when there is the Gilui of Atzmos, that reveals that Kol asher titli, Kol asher titli includes everything that you're going to give me, which is Gashmi, Ruchni, is all included together. And yet we say all of this is Aser and Uloch. Aser and from the word meaning 10, the Rebbe explains, represents the sphere of Keser. And furthermore, Aser and Uloch refers even higher than Keser to the very, very essence of Hashem. In other words, a person recognizes that everything, Kol asher titli, everything you give me is all about Loch. It's all about revealing the very, very essence of Hashem. Every aspect of the Yid is all representing that same Nekudah. Says the Rebbe in Siftes, based on this we can now understand what the pasuk says further. Vayikach me'avnei hamokim, vayosem erashoysev, he takes from the stones of the place and he puts it around his head. Vayishkam b'mokim, and that's when it says that he lied down in that place. So on those words, vayosem erashoysev, Rashi explains how Yaakov Avinu surrounds his head with the stones like a gutter around his head because of the wild beasts. And the stones start fighting with each other, and each one saying that Tzaddik should put his head down on me, etc. Immediately the Eibishter turns them all into one stone. Now, of course, the famous question is, what does this little fence of stones help around his head if the wild beast could clearly attack the rest of his body? So the Mefarshim come along and explain that actually Yaakov surrounded his whole body with stones, and that's why the expression is marzev, which is the name of a little pipe that comes out of the gutter. And in other words, so there's the part around the head, and there's also the part that goes around the body, and so on. But the truth of the matter is, it's still not understood. If that's the case, number one, then why is the pasuk saying Vayosem et Ashoysom surrounding his head? And second of all, how does surrounding his body with the stones help in any way whatsoever, when clearly, as we could see clearly, the animals have no problem jumping over these rocks as well? So the Rebbe explains, we could explain it al derech Chassidus. The Pu'ula of Yaakov, when he takes those stones and puts them around his head, there's an avodah ruchni is going on over here. In other words, he is being mamshech, he is drawing down and revealing in the Gashmis, the Kametzias, the light of the Neshama in a very, very great, powerful way. And that's what an Evan represents, strength and might. And when inside of the Gashmis, the Kametzias, it gets revealed what it's really all about, the Neshama inside of it, then there's no room for any sort of Helen the Hester, for any sort of problems and concealments with the Gashmias. None of that takes up any space, and therefore, automatically, the wild beasts can't hurt Yaakov. And since the place of the Nefesh Olikis is primarily in the Moichin Shemeroish, in the brain inside the head, and from there it spreads out to all the Evarim, therefore, that's the main place, the main toikev, the main strength of the neshama, the ruchni is where it's shining, and that's where the avonim are dafka around the moichin shemerosh, representing that power, that strength of the nefesh olikis that's in his head, And that's why he puts it Mirash Yosef. And this is also where Rashi says that the stones start fighting with each other. Each one wants that the tzaddik should put down his head on them. In other words, what's really the fight? What's really this quarrel that's going on? The Mefarshim explain is that it's a fight actually between those stones that were around the head with the stones that were around the rest of the body. And the fight was about that the tzaddik should put down his head on me. In other words, that the issue is that the great kedusha that's in the head, the avonim that are around the head, which represents a powerful kedusha of the nefesh elikis in the head, should also be and coming down also in the body in a similar sort of way. So what does the Eibush to do? He makes them tackle all into one stone. In other words, that same power of the neshama, the way it's in the head, should also come down into the guf, the ultimate chibur, the ultimate connection between the highest of the high and the lowest of the low, and they all become even achas. Achas also the idea of the gili of the atzmos of the Eibush himself. And this is why Vayishka b'mokem ahu, that he's lying down over there representing this idea that the Rosh and the Regel are all equal, and surely then there's no room for all of these animals and for their harm, and just on the contrary. And since the Gili of Atzmos is specifically as a result of coming down, Lamata, because the Gili Elikus in higher places, that's what we call Mitzad Giluyim, in other words, on levels of revelation, higher spirituality. So there you have a level of Gili Elikus, but specifically in a place where there's concealment, the Mata, that draws down the Gili of the very essence of Hashem, which is not limited at all by Gili or Helim, and therefore the greatest, powerful, true Kedusha, the Gili of Atzmos, expresses itself specifically in the Avonim, which are inanimate objects, and later they become the monument, or Even Azois. This stone that I place as a monument becomes a Beis Elikim, a place for Hashem, a house and a dira for the very, very essence of Hashem. Says the Rebbe in Seif Yud Aleph. Based on all of this, we can also understand the special koyach that Yaakov has coming to Choron. And that through this he was able to overcome all of the challenges of Choron. And furthermore, to be able to connect the highest and the lowest, the neshama and the guf, through the revelation of Atzmos. And since this is a chiddush that happened Dafka as a result of coming to Choron, therefore Yaakov's Dafka over there is where he sets up the 12 Shvatim in a way of mitosei shleima, that all of his sons are tzaddikim. And the Rebbe says, to add that based on this we could add even more and understand more so the expression of Chazal, mitosei shleima. Why do we use that expression mitosei? His bed was complete. Why don't we just say toldoisav, his offshoots, his children, etc.? So the Rebbe says that the word mita could also be understood that it's from the word of mata, meaning the lowest. That even the lowest of the low has the greatest shleimus, and as he said, even more so, that Dafka in a situation where he's lying, like lying on the bed, in a situation where the Rosh and the Guf and the Regel are all lying there equally, and yet he's able to be Megala to reveal Amitasar Shleimo, the greatest shleimus of the Gili of Atzmos, which makes everything equal, the greatest and the lowest. And again, where does that happen? Dafka in Choron, Dafka in the lowest place. It says that Rebbe Maisa Avoy Simul Labanim. This idea of being able to make the highest and the lowest equal, that even in the lowest place, we could draw down Elikus, or to use the expression that says regarding Moshe Rabbeinu, Mate ha'Elikim biyodoi. Which is again, you have that same word, Mata here, it's referring to Moshe Rabbeinu's staff. So Dafka through this Mata, he's able to achieve the Oisis and Mois and the miracles and wonders in the land of Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim, Lashon Meitzer Gvul, a place of constraints and concealment. But Dafka min ha-Meitzer Karasi Ka, Dafka from this place of narrow and constraints and so on, Anoni B'Merch of Ka, the Eibishter answers us in the broadest and the greatest way, the Gili of the very essence of Hashem, which is beyond limitations. Because this shleimus of refining the lowest of the low happens dafka as a result of the Gili of Atzmos, which is higher than Maila and Mata. And as we said before, the Pshitus, that purity and level of that idea of Atzmos, which was not bound or limited in any way, is connected with that simplicity of the Yid. And as a famous expression, Yisrael, V'Kuchabricha, Yidden and Hashem are all one, as we discussed at length in a previous Fabrengen. Says the Rebbe in Seif Yud Beis, since the main avodah of Yaakov in Choron, which is related in Parshas Vayetze, was regarding himself, his neshama and his guf being able to unite in the way of mitosei shleima, and as we know, this pa'ula also has to be, this idea also has to impact the world, So therefore, from this we come to the continuation of Parshas Vayishlach. Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim Lofanov. Yaakov sends messengers to Esav, his brother, in the land of Seir, Sdei Edom. Which now we're mainly speaking about how the world is going to be elevated as a result of Yaakov. So it's explained to Chassidus that Yaakov is on the level of Tikkun and Esav is on the level of Toyu. Yaakov sends messengers to Esav because Yaakov thinks that it's already the time that Esav was already completely refined, and therefore there can be the unity of the very great, powerful, many Oiros and Kalim of Toyu, of levels of Esav, along with the Oiros and Kalim. There are lots of Kalim of Tikkun, which now would be the whole perfect elevation and completion of the Gashmis of this world, which is becoming completely a Keli Telikus. And furthermore, that it becomes in such a way united, as we said, through the Gili of Atzmus, which is higher than Toyu and Tikkun, and expressing that how everything is just a Gili of the essence of Hashem, that because of that, everything would just be completely one. The only thing is that practically, Esav was not actually ready at that point. And therefore, only in the time of the Gula Mitzvah Shleima, the pasuk says, "Adasher Avay Ladoni Seidu," when Yaakov says, "Well, I'll finally come to my master and Seir." And when is that going to be? When Mashiach comes, as it says, "V'holda Mashiach Bartzion Lish B'Tasar Esav," as will be explained more later in the Sicha. Says the Rebbe in Sif Yud Gimel, these two parshas, Vayetze and Vayishlach, and the Avodah of Yaakov Avinu, which are the first place in Torah in which the Torah explains the Seder Avodah of how to deal with the world, are really expressing the whole idea of the Avodah of Torah and mitzvahs, especially after Matan Torah. In other words, it's all about elevating and refining the Gashmis of the body and of the world, and to make into a Keli for the Ruchnius of the Neshama, until the Gashmis itself will reveal the Koyach of Hashem in the creation and become one continuation to the Ruchnius, and eventually becoming a Dira, a dwelling place for the very essence of Hashem himself, as will be in the most perfect way when Mashiach comes to the Gula Mitzvah Shleima, when the whole world will be completely refined, and they will be able to receive the Oyer of Hashem, the Niglu Kved Hashem, the flesh itself will be able to see godliness, because there will be this shleimus, this perfection of Hashem's koyach being revealed in the creation. And on the contrary, as the pasuk says, Evan Mikir Tizak, the Gashmis itself, the stone itself will call out, the very doimim, the very inanimate object, the stone, as well as the plants and the animals, and surely the goof of the person, the Gashmis itself, through which the koyach of Atzmos is being revealed, will reveal and scream out the koyach HaPoel, the power of Hashem and the Ruchni that's in it, and Hashem's will in the whole world, similar to the concept that we also say, the kevot, the soiviv gever, of the female and the woman surrounding the male, the man, or the neshama, and ending up benefiting from the guf, being fed from the guf. Says the Rebbe in Sifri Daled, this tachlis of Torah mitzvahs generally, to connect Ruchnis and Gashmi is strengthened even more so through the Gili of Torah Chassidus, which its idea is to affect and to unite Elikus with the world. By revealing Pnimiyas HaTorah, the secrets of the Torah, the hidden part of the Torah as expressed in the revealed Chassidus, this caused the joining of the hidden part of Hashem with the hidden part of the Yidden, and that gives us the koyach to transform the lowliest parts of the Gashmis of the world, that it should be a keli for Gili Elikus, for the more revealed part of Hashem, and also for the hidden part of Hashem. And specifically through the revelation of Torah's Chassidus Chabad, which reveals the very essence of Pnimiyas HaTorah, which brings Elikus in a way of islapshus, in a way that it clothes itself in Avon of Asog, in a way of understanding, of Chochmah, Bin and Das, to the extent of Yisparnusum, that we can actually be fed and sustained by it. That it should be understood also in the Seichel of the person that's created, Nivra, in the world of Bria, and then down to the world of Yetzira and Asiya, and even in the Seichel of the Nefesh HaBahamis, like the idea of Choron that we spoke about before. And furthermore, it should be understood even in the Seichel of the nations of the world, even of Esav. And as the famous expression, Yafutzu Menesecha Chutza, that the wellsprings of the Chassidus of the Baal Shem Tov themselves should spread out. And furthermore, they should spread out even in chutzah to the greatest, furthest distances, that the nature, the world itself, and that the chutzah itself, the outside itself, should become a keli, and should become one with Elikus. Says the Rebbe Shloimar, that therefore the main gili of Torah Chassidus was when? In Chodesh Kislev. As it's known that Chodesh Kislev is the third month in the winter months, which corresponds to, and similar to the third month of the summer months, Chodesh Sivan, which is the month when Matan Torah was. So Chodesh Sivan is the third month. That's the time of Matan Torah, which is more the Indian of Nigla the Torah. Whereas Chodesh Kislev, the third month in the winter months, is the time of the Gilui of Pnimiyas HaTorah. And in this month, in the month of Kislev, there is a number of special days in the Divrei Yemei Chassidus in the Chassidish calendar. So, of course, we have Yutas Kislev, the Chag HaGeula of the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chassidus Chabad, in addition to the fact that it's also the Hilula of the Mizritcher Magid. So Yutas Kislev is Rosh Hashanah L'Chassidus, and as it's known that specifically after Petrogorg, that's when the whole Yefutzim Menesecha Chutzah started. We also have Tes Kislev, the Yom Holedus and the Yom Hilula of the second Nasi of Chabad, the Mittel Rebbe. We have Yud Kislev, the Chag HaGeula of the Mittel Rebbe, and of course we have Chanukah, the end of the month of Kislev, which also has a special connection to the Gilui of Pnimiyas HaTorah, all the way to the outside, because the Ness of Chanukah, the main Ness, is connected with a jug of oil, and the oil of Torah. This is Rosin de Rosin. These are the secrets of the Torah, and we have to light it at our doorway on the outside. In other words, the Gilui of the secrets of the Torah should shine all the way. Those things from in the house, but should shine all the way through the door of the house, also all the way into the chutz. So the explanation of the idea of Chodesh Kislev with the Gilui of Pnimiyas HaTorah is as follows. The difference between Chodesh Kislev, the third months of the winter months, and Chodesh Sivan, the third month of the summer months, is that winter generally is a time of rain. It's a season of rain. We say Mashiv Ruach U'Moira Degeshem. Now rain generally is connected with the avodah of a person, as it says in Pashas Bereshis, Ki lo yimtir Hashem elakim al haaretz, the Eibishter had not made it rain yet. V'od mayim lav v'dasa adam, there was no man yet to work the land. Then ve'ed yalim in haaretz v'hishkos kol bnei adam, a vapor comes up from the ground and causes it to water the whole ground. Whereas the summer months, which come after the winter, after the rain season, they are connected mainly with tal, with dew, which comes down from above in a way of tal u'metzer. It doesn't stop at all. So Dafka in this period, in the time of rain, which comes through the avodas hamata, Dafka from the avodah of down here, and the word geshamim is also related to gashmi, the gashmis of the world. So Dafka here we have the idea of that connection again between the milo and the mata. The eid yalam and orange, that vapor comes up from the ground, from the earth comes up this very, very thin cloud or vapor. So it shows that it's something on the one hand. It's connected to the tachton, it's coming up minaret, and then the hishkos kopnei adama, then it rains down from above, mil milo lamata, it comes down from the clouds, down onto earth, and they are watering the whole land, the whole gashmias of the world, and also pnei adama, even the pnimias of the gashmias. And as the nature of water actually is, that it seeps through and it becomes completely, everything becomes saturated completely with the wetness of the water, whatever it comes in contact with. And in this is expressed the special milo, the special advantage of, when we say mayim, we of course know a mayim ela Torah. So Torah generally, and specifically when we speak about Chassidus and Chodesh Kislev, that the whole idea is that the seichel of the person, the created person, and the gashmis, the gemetzias, should be completely permeated with elikus, with, as the expression, mei hadas haTorah, the pure water of knowledge, das elokei avicha, the knowledge of Hashem, all the way to, as the pasuk says, kula mashke, expression of the Alter Rebbe that used this expression regarding Lasud Lavit kula mashke, that the whole world of Gashmi is completely permeated and filled with elikus, with ruchnias, molar it's deis Hashem kamayim layom achasim, as will be with Gilui b'Gula mitzvah shleima, which comes through Yafutzum and Esecha Chutzah. The Rebbe says this idea is also hinted in the word Kislev itself. What is the word Kislev? Kislev is put together of two parts, case, loy. In other words, that the levels of elikus, which are case, which are hidden, so they are hidden only on their own. They're hidden because of that's the level of sos and the kutshabrichu. They are on their own very, very high levels that cannot be revealed. And yet, they are going to be nizgala. They are going to be revealed, and that's what loy represents. Loy is the same gematria as the word eila, which means these, when you can actually see something and point it. And furthermore, the midas of the person, the main 6 midas of the person, how each one includes the other one, so it's 6 times 6 is 36. So this is the gilui of the midas in a way that's completely revealed every aspect of the midas. So the case, that which was hidden, comes out completely revealed inside the midas of the person. So the Rebbe goes on in Sif Tezvav and explains that within the gilui of Chassidus itself, So the special connection between Ruchnius and Gashmius is particularly noticeable in the Chassidus of the Mittler Rebbe. It's known that the Gilui of Teres Chassidus Chabad was in an organized way. Each one of the Rabbi Seinu and Sienu revealed and caused another stage and another path in the Gilui in accordance to the way a new Seichel comes about. Even though, says the Rebbe, that who is the one that could come and dare start making differences in between the luminaries of Chassidus? But the truth of the matter is that our Rabbein themselves revealed to us these various different dargos. So the Alter Rebbe was in the level of Chacham of Chassidus. He was the one that revealed Chassidus in a way of a Nakud, in a way of a point form. Then came along the Mittler Rebbe at the level of Bina, and he brought that point of Chachma in a way that it's expounded upon and really elaborated in a way of Avon of Asaga, that it can be completely understood, all the way to, as the expression, Ruchayvos Hanar, a very broad river like Bina, similar to the water in the river, which is the idea of Bina, which comes out of the Mayan, out of the spring, which is Chachma. And in the river itself, it keeps on getting bigger and stronger and broader. And as we see this in the Maimorim Chassidus of the Mittler Rebbe, that those ideas of the Alter Rebbe's Chassidus came along by the Mittler Rebbe to be explained in a much greater and broader way. In order to be piled this shleimus of the unity of the Seichel with that which is understood, and in this case, the yichud of the Seichel of the person, the Deus Hashem, to understand godliness through learning Torah Chassidus. So you need, in addition to that point and point form dot of Chachma, you also need the great explanations and details of Bina. And in a similar way, we understand also regarding the connection between Ruchnis and Gashmi is Elikus and the world, which happens through Chassidus, that the Shleimus is that we have, in addition to the idea of Chachma, we also have the idea of Bina. And as this is also explained in his physical life, the life of the Mittler Rebbe, as it's known what the Tzemach Tzedek said about the Mittler Rebbe, that if they would cut my father-in-law's finger, so rather than blood coming out, Chassidus would come out. In other words, even as Gashmi is like a life is blood, Hadamu HaNefesh itself, even that was Chassidus and Ruchnis. Says the Rebbe via Shlomo that the reason is because Rechoivis Hanar of Bina, this great expansion of the river of Bina, is not only coming out of, and it therefore lower than Chachma, but really it has a source that's higher than Chachma itself, and what we call Merchav Atzmi, and the expansion and the broadness that's completely higher than Chachma. And therefore it has the ability to connect Ruchnis and Gashmi, is since it's actually higher than both, and Adarabah, Dafka, this Gili of Merchav Atzmi comes as a result of the Avodah down here, similar to what we said before, Min HaMeitzar Karosika, Dafka, from the Meitzar we come to the Merchav. Says the Rebbe, this we could also explain. The title of the Mittler Rebbe, we call him the Mittler Rebbe. What does middle represent? That he's coming between the first and the third, and he's connecting them. In other words, the Mittler Rebbe being on the level of Bina, he connects the Nasi before him and the Nasi after him. Da'at Rebbe, which is Chachma, and the Tzemach Tzedek, which is Das, in a way that it includes now all three heads and fathers of Chassidus, corresponding to Chachma, Bina, and Das, since Dafka in him is expressed the general idea of Gilui Chassidus Chabad, which is to connect the Likus with the world. Says the Rebbe in Sifta Zayin, now we can understand why Dafka by the Mittler Rebbe we find this idea and this chidush of Shleimus, that his physical life was miyoyim l'yoyim, went from day to day, literally passing away the same day that he was born on Tes Kislev. Since by him was so much emphasized this idea of the connection between Ruchnis and Gashmias, which we said before comes as a result of the Koyach HaAtzmos, this Merchav HaAtzmi, so the Shleimus and the Avodah of Ruchnis expresses itself and feeds and waters the Hishkas Pnei Adamo, also his physical life, so they too are complete, as we said before, Mamali Shneisei and Miyoyim l'yoyim. Based on this, we can also explain why this day of Tes Kislev is the Erev and Nachon of the Yud Kislev, the Chag HaGeula of the Mittler Rebbe, which was set in the first year, Tov Kuf Peches, which was already just after the Istalkus of the Mittler Rebbe, because the Shleimus of the Chibur of the Avodah of the Tzaddik, in that Ruchnis and Gashmis come together, even in his physical life, is a proper Hachana, is a proper preparation, which gives immediately the Koyach for the Geula, for a redemption in the matters of Yefutzum and Esecha Chutza, as it's known that the Mittler Rebbe's Geula, so too, it's similar to the Alter Rebbe's Geula, was mainly a Geula regarding spreading Chassidus, which regarding before that, there was a Kitrug against the spreading of Chassidus, that even compared to the Gilui Chassidus of the Mittler Rebbe, which was already in Rechoivis Hanor, and then there had to be this imprisonment. Now there's a Geula even compared to that previous spreading of Chassidus, a Geula and breaking all barriers, all the way Shaloi Be'erich, to connect the Elyon and Tachton, similar to the Bittul of the Gzeira, between Elyonim and Tachtonim that happened in Matan Torah, of Nigla the Torah in the revealed way, in a similar way, is the Geula that we speak about now. And furthermore, the Geula of Yud Kislev becomes also the beginning and as an introduction to the Geula of Yud Kislev, which is Rosh Hashanah L'Chassidus. Says the Rebbe in Sif Yud Zayin. Just to add that all of this is an additional point in the Kviyas of this year when Tes Kislev falls out on Shabbos. On Shabbos, of course, the Ruchnius is expressed in Oinik Shabbos. So this is on the one hand, an Inyan that's higher in the world, the pleasure of Shabbos, but it expresses itself in the physical Gashmi, is the Inyan of the Yidden, is eating, is drinking, is sleeping. And it's a mitzvah to delight in Shabbos through eating and drinking. And Shino b'Shabbos Tainik, also sleeping. So that this extra neshama that we have on Shabbos, which is drawn down on Shabbos, has an effect even on the Nefesh HaBahamis and even on the Teva of the physical body of the Yid, and also on the Gashmius of the world. Says the Rebbe in Seif Yudches, all of the above mentioned is connected and has to do with, of course, Yidden in all generations. How much more so, says the Rebbe, in our generation, in our time, that according to the Siman Chazal, Masechta Sanhedrin, and in Midrashim, in a number of places, we're holding now, literally, in the stages of the Geula. Spoke many times recently that after all of the tremendous amount of Maaseh, Vayetze, our actions and activities throughout all the generations, especially after the Avodah of Rabbi Seinu and Nisiyah, starting from the Avis Achsidus and the days of their Geula, Yud Kislev and Yud Kislev, and the days of Yom Yiledus and Hilula, on Tes Kislev and Chavdal Tevis, etc. And from then, a number of generations and years passed already, all the way to the Avodah of Kvoid Kedush Leinu Yad Mur Nesidereinu. So by now, we finished already all the Birurim, including the Birur of Esav Edom, and how much more so if even in the time of Yaakov already thought that Esav was refined already, and as far as Yaakov's Darga is concerned, that in fact was the case. How much more so now after so much avodah being done since then? So Esav by now definitely was completely refined, and as we can see clearly in the conduct of the Goyim, Golus Edom generally, which is related to Esav Edom, how they act now in a way of Malchus Shel Chesed, of a government of kindness, and this conduct is also spreading out into other countries, as we see clearly recently. So it's understood that now we're mamish holding at that time, where the Gashmis, the Guf, and even the Gashmis, the world, are already completely refined and elevated, and they are prepared keli for all of the Inyanim Ruchniim, especially the oil of Mashiach Tzidkeinu, the oil of the Gula Mitzvah Shleima, and all the way the Gili of Pshitus of the Atzmus of Husi Yisbarech, as it expresses itself in the Pshitus or Atzmus in of Mashiach Tzidkeinu, which is actually even higher than the level of Yechida and all of the Dargis and all of the different Ashpais, and through that it also gets expressed in the Pshitus of every single Yid. And the only thing that's missing right now is that a Yid should open up his eyes properly and to see how everything is ready for the Geula. We have already the set table, we have already the Levyosa, the Sheirabor, the Ayin HaMeshumor. Yidden are already sitting around the table of their father, Melech Malchai Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, together with Mashiach Tzidkeinu, as it says in Sfarim that in every single generation there's someone from the seed of Yehuda that is fitting to be Mashiach, and in our generation, the seed Deireinu, Kvoit Kedushas Meirav Chami Admur, and after 40 years since the Stalkos of the Frierdiker Rebbe, we have already also the Leiv Lodas Ve'inayim L'Reis, the eyes to, the heart to understand, the eyes to see, and the ears to hear. So all we need now is that we should open up that heart to understand, and open up our eyes to see, and open up our ears to hear, and similarly to utilize all of our Ramachi Varim and Shasak Gidim, all of our physical limbs, and every part of our Gashmis, the body, in addition to learning Torah and doing mitzvahs generally, which is Ramach Mitzvah Seh Shasal Loisaseh, which is the spiritual Ramach Evarim Shasagidim. So also to utilize it all to learn Pnimis HaTorah as to reveal in Torah Sachsidus and fulfilling the Heirois of Rabbi Seinu and Nisiyah, including about learning in Yoni Agul in a way that will open up our heart and our eyes and our ears, so that we should be able to understand and see and feel the Pashtus Mamish and the Gashmis of the world, the Geula Mitzvah Shleima B'Poyel Mamish, and to learn the Torah of Mashiach Pnimis HaTorah in a way of Re'iyah, that all of this we have already ready and prepared. So all we need now is to open up our eyes, and then we'll be able to see it. Says the Rebbe, see, if you test in simple words of the Gela Maisa B'Poyel, since the Chibur of the Neshama, that attachment, the connection between Neshama and Guf Ruchnis and Gashmis, we have already now completely, and everything is ready for the Gula, so we need to do things that we should be able to reveal it B'Poyel Mamish. So first of all, in the Inyan Hashaz Mangaram is something that's very timely. In the Yom HaLedes, when Mazolo Yigover, and the Yom Hilul of the Mittel Rebbe, we need to be adding in learning this Torah, specifically in a way of Rechoivis, in a broad and expanded way of Bina, which connects Ruchnis and Gashmis, as we explained before at length. And this learning is shaykh to every single Yid, men and women, as we discussed many times, that the learning of Chassidus and spreading of Chassidus to the outside is also simply connected to women as well, L'Shei B'nai Yisrael, especially that brings Mashiach. And furthermore, learning has to bring to action, to bring this into action, Ma'aseh B'Poel, to learn from the Mittel Rebbe, that by him, this expressed itself in the Shleimus of the Avodah and Torah, Chassidus B'Gashmis, the Gashmis of the Guf and the world, both in time and place, as we said before, the Eibishter fills the years. Miyoim Liyoim, that by each and every person there has to be a special effort to express his ruchnis, to express his chassidishkeit, also in his physical things, and regarding all of his gashmis, the things, and his time and place for gashmis, that in every single area should be felt the warmth and the chayas that flow from his yiddishkeit and from his chassidishkeit, to the extent that there is no separation b'chlal within himself at all, but rather everything, his ruchnis and his gashmis are all one. In addition to this, to organize farbrengens, Chassidish farbrengens in every single place, starting from the Chag HaGula of Yud Kislev, and to speak and to learn about the Torah of the Baal HaGula, to accept Achlotas Toivus and all of these matters, including Achlotas that are appropriate. That is to set farbrengens, Chassidish farbrengens, and big farbrengens, and Yud Kislev, the Chag HaGula of the Alter Rebbe, and to see it, to make sure in every single place to do this, even in the Pinani Dachas, even in the most far-fetched corners, that every single corner of the world, the Gashmis of the Olam, where there's Yidden found, should be permeated with the light and the warmth of Chassidus, of Yutas Kislev, Rosh Hashanah of Chassidus. And so to continue these Chassidish Farbrengen in all of Chodesh Kislev, especially in the special days that are connected with Torah Chassidus and Darkei Chassidus, and all the way till the end of the month, to organize Farbrengens in the days of Hanukkah, and in this spirit of shining by yourself and illuminating both yourself and your surrounding with the lights of Hanukkah, al Pesach Beisim Bachutz, on your doorway and to the outside, in the way of continuing to add light every single day, including the Minig Rabbi Seiner Nisiyenu to make family get-togethers for the family on Hanukkah, and to give out Hanukkah Gel to the family, specifically to the children, to the boys and the girls, to the sons and the daughters, because when every single person is Makayim this minig in the proper way of piercing of publicity, and especially adding and giving Chanukah Gel Beribui, that will clearly add Simcha by the children, so through that we become even more Makusha through fulfilling this minig with Rabbi Seinu and Siyenu, so that will give us even more koyach to be able to take their Torah and their Eiros and their Menagim to make it permeate our daily lives and our individual days. Specifically the Minig Yisrael that's continuing to become more and more publicized these days, to learn Yana Gula and Yana Mashiach, to prepare ourselves and to prepare everyone around us for the Gilui of Gula Mitzvah Shlema, as said before. Says the Rebbe V'hi Ratzeh, that from speaking and accepting Achlotas Toivus and all of these in Yonim, they should bring Takef Miyad Begilui, the Gula Mitzvah Shlema, the Mashiach Tzidkein Eleini Basar, of every single Yidden, of all the Yidden, Takef Miyad Mamish. All the Yidden go with the clouds of heaven, together with all Ma'asenu, together with all of our physical possessions, Kaspam Zav Mitam, together with the Batei Migdash Ma'at and our private houses. So therefore, obviously, the Rebbe says everyone will go willingly. And through this, we become that all became completely permeated with the light of Chassidus and the Kedusha of the Neshama, as said before, V'shachanti v'soichel la'artzeinu ha'kadosh l'Yerushalayim v'ha'kadosh l'Har ha'kadosh v'samigdash ha'shlishi. And the Rebbe says Yeshloima, that the Batei Migdash Ma'at and the individual houses, which are similar to a Migdash Ma'at, will all be connected to the Migdash Adnai Kainori Yedech, to the Beis HaMikdash, and the Kodesh HaKadoshim, which there is the Evan Hashsiyah, from where the whole world was founded, for Oid V'Oiker, take it from Miyad Mamash.